What's up, everyone? Happy Friday, and welcome to the game on Pax8 Live, the show where we talk about all the cybersecurity shenanigans you need to be aware of from the last week. Pretty excited for this episode. We're going to talk about the importance of the channel community, talk about getting involved in that community, showing up at events, meeting people, making new connections. Before we get into that, let's jump straight into the news because we actually have some good news this time.
I think,
What's
Dom,
happening?
the first piece of good news is that I have had 49 flights this year, and I have now had my fourth on-time flight. And I just gotta
Wow.
say, it just feels so
We're at a
magical. Yeah,
49.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, we're at less than
449s.
10%. Yeah, we're 449 as I would always catalog it. But we do have some good news here, actually, in the sense that we want to start out with this article from the IRS confirms takedown of bulletproof hosting provider Lolek. A popular bulletproof hosting platform was taken down by authorities in the U.S. and Poland this week, marking the latest effort to limit the anonymous access cyber criminals have to critical tools. And when we talk about this, right, we say that the critical tools they're talking about, Dom, are what? That's like me and you using DigitalOcean to have an asset that
Close
we
to
can use
C2
in our work.
or Evil Gen
Right.
X or something like that.
All the things. And so what's nice is, as we go on to read this article, they talk about how they've actually been able to, as the IRS, take down that service for bulletproof hosting services, has a blind eye to the content customers post, and promise to protect their identities, which, if you think about it, that gives a haven for somebody. Now it's not only DigitalOcean, but it's DigitalOcean now that would maybe not care if I'm a threat actor and not actually ask to validate any identity. And so they took that out as a result of this operation. And so I always like to highlight when there's, a threat actor has something a little bit harder for them, right?
We talked
From that
about another
perspective.
provider last week. They
Last
were called
week. Yep.
CloudZ, where some 40% of their customers are believed to be malicious threat actors.
Right.
And the CEO
And
vehemently
foreign
disagreed and
government
said 2%.
entities. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps. So this
Yeah.
is a good one, right? Lolek was absolutely built, by the way, for the purpose of hosting
Right.
illicit infrastructure, right? They're not; these anonymous programs are built for that purpose. You can't change my mind.
Yeah, 100%. They argue the realm of privacy. They argue that there's an aspect of it from, just trying to make it to where you can have a safe and secure. But really, in reality, you set up a service like that to hide the identity
Yeah.
of the actor, right? In that regard. So awesome. The next article. Let's get into it. I always love seeing foreign governments, but New Zealand's primary national intelligence agency on Friday accused China. Now, this is going to shock you, Dom. I want you to prepare yourself. This is going to be
Okay.
wild and out there, of ongoing activity in and against New Zealand in an unclassified report describing the country's threat environment. So, a 53-page report from New Zealand Security Intelligence Service described the Chinese activity as a complex intelligence concern for New Zealand, with the agency noting groups and individuals linked to Chinese intelligence were continuing to target New Zealand's
What?
diverse ethnic. And what's interesting is they do call out ethnic Chinese people. You've seen this campaign play out as a precursor for a
Right.
long time on a lot of different things that have come out. But what are your thoughts on this, man? I mean, just in general, it's probably not anything super new to you.
Well, yeah. I'm not shocked that Chinese intelligence is taking adversarial cyber action. Um,
No,
if you didn't know, they've been doing that since cyber was a domain. But
pretty
to be
much.
fair, so have we. So, you know, but
Allegedly.
allegedly, yeah. I don't know anything about Stuxnet, but
More
it
flame.
is what it is. I think this, and I didn't have a chance to read the report, but I think this speaks a little bit more towards what we talked about last week with less espionage intent and a little more disruption intent, or interference, as this one is listed, and that's a little concerning and something that is obviously has many eyes, or approximately 5 eyes being kept on it. But
Touche.
there is a see what I did there. But it's definitely not alarming, and I don't think it's new. And I think it's important to understand too that espionage has been around for hundreds of years. It's not going
Yeah.
anywhere. We all spy on each other. That's no secret anymore, right? So, again, not shocked. I'm not incredibly alarmed by this particular one, at least from what I've read, as much as I was alarmed by the U.S. story last week and some of the stuff they found.
One of the things that stood out to me is that the breadth of it, right? The information that foreign intelligence agency are attempting to steal is increasingly broad, running from military capabilities to sensitive intellectual property, or even personal information is being sought in order to gain strategic advantage. And you think about this as it's the humans that they're after, and it's the information about those humans and the access of which they have. This is a classic methodology of to your point, espionage. But it also
And
has played out in
that's a
interesting
human
ways.
activity, really. Like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
using
Human
cyber
intelligence.
intelligence
You got
to,
hey,
yeah,
you used an acronym, so that's human intelligence. That should be
human
101.
intelligence. Yeah.
Human. Yep, 100%. So, but this has played out in fatal ways recently. There was an article that was talking about a Strava user whose identity was being followed by a foreign intelligence officer, and it was actually shown that they were followed by that, and he was shot on his daily run. Well, it doesn't take a genius to put together that if I know where your daily run is every day, it's easy to compromise that individual from that perspective. But the point is, they're making this broader and broader and broader, of which these espionage activities are starting to come
Well, and
because of the
to dig
value they
in
provide.
too, because you mentioned IP. China's been stealing IP for a
Intellectual
long
property,
time.
or that
Fair.
way. Yeah,
Stealing all my
sorry. Yeah,
acronyms.
yeah, I am.
It's that is definitely not new, right? Like
Yeah.
the F-35 is a classic story, and where CMC
100%.
came from. But there's tons of stories. There was a whole Siemens case and about wind turbines. There's been cases about software. There's been cases about
My
hardware.
favorite graphic that sticks out is this Chinese commercial airline for passenger airline that they literally highlighted the section that said that's a GE plan. That one came
Yeah,
from Spirit Aero
yeah,
Systems. This piece came from right. And so
right.
like looking at a cow for its parts when it's cut up for a butcher's diagram, right? Like, anyways, but yeah, it was
Yeah.
fantastic. But yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, so IP theft again is another, like you said, it's strategic advantage, right? I don't have to do
Exactly.
the innovation if I could take your innovation.
Yeah.
So again, it's nothing new, but the expansion into gathering that human intelligence, you don't know what it's going to lead to in that part of the world. It's a little more contentious with China from a potential for kinetic things
Yep.
to occur than it is in the U.S. mainland. So that's something that again, approximately Five Eyes are probably thinking about in terms of what does this mean, right? There's always some
What I
reason we're doing something. North Korea does it to fund their economy. China does it to gain some sort of advantage.
I want to stop you because you keep saying the five eyes, and I have to feel that it's you and Sav have four eyes, and I'm the fifth eye. Is that what we're talking about here? Like, Dom, we could have not
Yeah.
led with the eye
Yeah.
jokes, man. Like, geez. No, I
If you don't know what the
digress.
Five Eyes are, Google it. It's a
Yeah, well, Five
well-known.
Eyes intelligence community, just for anybody that's questioning what he's talking about, is Australia, New Zealand, the United States, Canada, and the UK principally share a lot of intelligence, have since World War II shared a lot of this, and it ties into when it comes to cyber, there's a lot of that collaboration. And that's why you'll often see the NCSC, the ACSC, NIST and
Right.
CISA and the UK all coming out with very similar prescriptive advice, right? Especially when it came to
Right.
national cybersecurity strategy, the presidential order last year. There's been several examples where that expands across the Five Eyes intelligence community as well. But just for anybody who was
Right.
curious where Dom's talking about there. So, okay, so let's go to one. We talked about good news. We talked about today's news, yesterday's news. Let's talk about one that comes a little nearer and dearer to you, Dom. I think you just are collecting the whole menagerie of breaches about your information. But
As
on
many as
August
I can
4th,
get,
the
man.
Colorado it's like collecting them all, right? You got to catch them all. So August 4th, the Colorado Department of Higher Education learned that an unauthorized actor, I think that's probably a mistype, has accessed the system in a ransomware incident that took place between June 11th and 19th. Just because if it was an authorized actor,
That would be
that would mean
weird.
it was
Yes.
that would be very, very weird. But if an unauthorized actor, I believe would be a better way to say that. The unknown gang copied private and sensitive data, including but not limited to names, social security numbers, and student identification numbers. I actually hate the term "but not limited to" in this statement, right? Like we're like, well, we know we got this
Just tell
stuff
us
that's
everything
really
they got.
bad,
Yeah.
but we don't know what else. I mean, that's akin to saying we don't know, right? Like that's
Right.
saying and other stuff probably. But
Probably.
anyways, continuing on this. It says that the breach potentially affects a large demographic of individuals, including those who attended public college or university in Colorado between 2007 and 2020, or a public high school between 2004 and 2020. So essentially, anyone from 2004 to 2020, unless my math's just that screwed up. I guess that is a subset, but between 2010 and 2014, anybody that was an educator. those who participated in the state's dependent tuition assistance program. You can imagine where that comes into some challenges, right? You now actually have some leverageable information about saying, hey, you guys were on assistance and went to school. I mean, I think there's just some interesting pieces in that, but the Colorado Department of Education at least came out with it. They do, it would seem, have the ability to have looked at logs June 11th through 19th, still by August 4th to have discovered that, which to me probably means they're following Control 8 pretty well. And they have some prescriptive 90 days or more of logs and audit information there. So anyways, it is it's a heavy heart on that one. But any thoughts on that, Dom, since your data is probably in that based on your age and locale?
Yeah. Like, what are you going to do? I think this is why we do things like pay attention to our credit and those kind of things. So obviously do that if you graduate high school in that 16-year span of time in Colorado. But it's important to remember that these things are going to happen. And I will say, from my outsider's opinion of kind of how Colorado handles technology, we do it okay. I don't think we do it great. Like many municipalities and state governments, right? There's a lot of limitations. There's not a ton of money to spend. So there's a lot of different interesting. I think they misinterpreted the finger there.
They did. I put the finger up and go, don't come to me yet, because I'm drinking water and I totally messed that up. That's on me. All right, fair. But you guys got to see my choice of bottled water, I suppose.
But again, like, these things happen. There is obviously with data around assistance programs some sensitive information there. But again, name, social security number, student identifier are all high levels of PII. So pay attention for it. Be on the lookout if you are impacted by this breach for the notifications to come and the services they're going to offer.
I also want to add that this is August 11th, and I want to double check the date of that article, but that article was August 7th. That means that they said on August 4th they discovered, but by August 7th they were disclosing. I would give kudos to that almost from any organization. Yeah. I don't know if it meets the requisite standard of what the SEC is putting forth and some of the things we're seeing, but at least to go from discovery to
SEC
public
said 4 days, right? So that's 3 days.
Yeah. So we're right within it. That's true. Yeah. So I think what's great about that is that's what I would give them kudos for. I'm actually happy that they came out and said it within that time frame, and it means they have at least enough incident response plan in play and enough being able to get through the stages, right? Because the stages are, you have to establish legal privilege. You're going to make sure that you have breach counsel involved. You're going to ensure that you have forensics teams. You're going to start doing that to get through those phases and be able to come out with a public release about this in that time.
The benefit of being a state is, like, we have an AG, right, at the state
That's
level,
true.
Right? And there's
fair.
Those
and
kind
it is the state. That is true.
Right. There's those kind of elected representatives that are always involved. But also, I would imagine
you have the inherent challenge of
level,
suing the government too. So it's probably able to move with a little more.
Good luck. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's awesome. I appreciate going through the news. Let's kick it over to Robin Harris for some brilliant words as usual. She's going to continue her track about AI.
So we are continuing our discussion about AI and specifically making a case for AI governance, why companies should put that in place sooner rather than later. And in this episode, we're talking about misinformation, fraud, and the changing threat landscape. Now, to set this up, I want you to follow me on this scenario. Have you ever had a friend that was a good interpreter and they could speak with such authority and they just sounded like they really knew what they were talking about and they were an expert and they just kind of wowed you? But really, you know this person and you know, about 80% of what he says is probably half true and the other 20% is wow, So this is the same thing we can get with GPT and other tools. We cannot assume that just because the response was returned to us and it sounds intelligent and it's got the dates and it's got the figures and it's got the percentages, that it is accurate, because in fact, those tools will be incorrect a certain amount of the time. And it is our responsibility to do the fact check. Think about this. Think about how this can play out in terms of committing a fraud. Because now the threat actors, the bad actors, their wills are scripted and they're full creative. Oh my goodness, I just say if they use that creativity to do good, oh, so much, but so many awesome things would happen. We're going to have to come up with tools to protect ourselves from bad actors who are quite clever and quite good at finding ways to infiltrate organizations and impact data. So this is going to be like a whole new area of governance, of auditing, of controls, of compliance, of attestations. One of the things we have to understand is when we bring a new technology online, we also have to put in the safeguards for unintended risk. So think about back in the horse and buggy days. They had a problem with horse manure. That was the problem they had to deal with. Oh, the autos became the saving grace. Now we don't have to deal with the horse manure. But then we had to have auto safety. We had to have road safety. We had to have, then you fast forward emissions, seat belts, all kinds of laws. Because automobiles came with a different set of risks than horse and buggies. And the exact same thing is going to happen with AI. There's already AI scams out there. So at a whole nother level of fraud, we're going to have to be prepared to deal with. So I'm just saying, AI governance, you need to have it at a company level. I'm going to reiterate, as much as we can do for ourselves and as much as we can do as an industry, we don't want to turn this over to governments because we know what that's going to look like. A government's great. They're going to have to get involved and they're going to have to play an important part. But as much as we can do for ourselves to put the framework for responsible use of this emerging technology, then we have a responsibility and obligation to do it, and it just makes good business sense.
And it just makes
Another
good
classic.
business sense. Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Well, Dom, I'm pretty excited because you and I both actually got to go to the event we're going to be talking about today with the human we're going to be talking to and kind of witness some of the stuff we're going to be talking about, which is fantastic. So why don't you kick us off? Who's here with us, Dom? What are we doing?
Well, but first, we have to be properly introduced to the event. We have a good friend, JP, who's going to reintroduce us to this event, if we could get that clip.
When in Rome, let's do it. Yeehaw! Give it back. All right.
So
if you don't know, that was Xchange Security in Dallas in July. It was very hot, but we got to watch JP shout yeehaw on stage, and it was fantastic. And Matt got it filmed. So we have Savanna Hosler joining us. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, continue.
I was just saying, we have Savanna Hosler joining us. She was with us at Xchange. If you were there, hopefully you met her. And an interesting fact about her attendance with us at Xchange was this is the first time she's gone and done the boardrooms and the presentations. So we really thought it prudent to bring her on and talk about the value that she got out of, while Matt rearranges his life there, talk about the value that she got out of getting involved and being in the community. But Matt, what was your point going to be before we dive in?
I was going to say that yeehaw from JP was because JP was offended by the yeehaw given the earlier night and said he needed to go and set it straight and do it on stage live. And I don't know if you were there for that one, but there was a gentleman going around asking everybody to yeehaw. And one of them looked at Rob Ray and Rob says, "I'm not yeehawing. Like, I'm not going to do this." It was hilarious, but the face was everything. But no, it was a great opening to that event. So sorry about that. Didn't want to derail us from the conversation.
It was a great opening. All right, Sav, tell us who you are. Tell us what you do.
Tell us what I do. Is that what you want to start with?
And who you are. Yeah, tell us about yourself.
Who I am. I am Savanna Hosler. I go by Sav a lot. What I do here at Pax8 is I'm the revenue marketing manager on our America's marketing team. A lot of marketing there. So what we focus on is reviewing internal data points and creating that into revenue opportunities for our partners in our ecosystem.
All right. That's easy enough. We don't understand that
Awesome.
title either, so it's okay. I don't understand my title. It's no big deal. So tell us about your journey into the channel, because yours is interesting and your kind of origin story and coming to Pax8 and into tech channel in general.
Yeah, of course. So I've been at Pax8 a little over 6 years. I actually started as a cold caller within Pax8 when we were really small. So that was always very interesting because we still were getting our name in the channel and people were still learning who we were. And then I moved over to a sales consultant and I did that for a few years. And then I also worked in our internal operations team, our revenue operations team, and then I landed today in our marketing team. So
You know
I've
what's cool?
done a little bit of everything.
You know what's cool about that for me in that event was if you haven't been to Xchange, it's a concept of boardrooms and also key presentations from people that have something to say. But in the boardrooms, what was really neat is that you've been in each one of those roles. Like you were there talking to people on the front line, pitching product, explaining why our value proposition. You've been there through RevOps and seeing the actual numbers and seeing how it works and what drives success for vendors and partners alike, right? And then now you stepped into this marketing role. And so what I really wanted to tackle today is, for the most part, aside from that frontline time frame, you've been mainly in-house talking to partners in that way. What's different about going to one of these events like this in the interactions and some of the things that stood out to you would be one of the questions I have from going to this event.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think going to these events and at least going to the most recent one in Dallas, it was so beneficial for me to get that FaceTime, not only with Pax8 partners, but with MSPs who aren't even working with Pax8 and hearing their feedback of what they think of the channel and dispute. Oh, I can't say the word, guys, disties, but it is so great to get that point of view from each person and just having also that banter. And something that I just love is networking and getting to actually go out there and speak to people is something that brings me a lot of joy. And I think something that comes natural to me. So, it's fulfilling me in my job. And, I have been in positions at work where definitely during COVID, we were lacking that FaceTime. So it's so nice to get out there and just hear the trends that are happening in the channel, hear, about certain solutions or vendors maybe that I haven't heard about yet and what's so great about them and, where people are putting them within their stack. And then that relays back to what I do by figuring out where do we need to go in the channel and the trends and what we need to promote internally.
Well, help unpack that just a little bit more and just in your role. So you said a little bit about it, but what do you want to know? What is it that you're actually trying to understand from these interactions?
So what I'm trying to understand is what do they need in their business? Something that we have discussed before, and we discussed this in one of our boardrooms, is the pillars that we really focus on. So reduce risk, gain efficiency, grow my business, is figuring out how MSPs today are handling those challenges and what they're going through, because that helps us identify where we can educate them and help them through those workflows and how we can best assist them with our academy courses, with our, the courses that you go through, Matt, and where can we pin those in their journey to best assist them so they're not having to seek them out.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think the point is it's about empowerment and education, right? And you can't empower people and drive their success and be on their team if you don't understand what they do and how they live and what they think about. And I think, and I'd like to ask your thoughts on this. I feel like you get more unguarded views of these partners when you're in these scenarios, right? So it goes into that, is it more valuable to get to meet these partners and get to know them in that scenario because of that reason?
100%. I mean, Dom and I, when we were there, we had a dinner with some MSPs that, weren't even Pax8 partners. Some were, some weren't. And that was the most crucial point of my whole trip. I learned so much from the people that were sitting next to me just by having regular conversations. And it's not as of an environment of like, we only need to talk about work, but, things come up during dinners and networking, and you learn so much more that you're like, oh, actually, that's a really good little tidbit to know that can help me out. So I love
100%. Yeah. And I think one of the things about Xchange is you're kind of forced to do these presentations in the boardroom, at least in the one we did at Xchange Secure. And all the way back to what I was saying in the beginning is because you sat in each of those seats, you actually knew exactly what the partners got as a benefit statement. You've seen that play out. You've worked one-to-one with it. Is there anything in the boardrooms that stood out that people liked or didn't like, or what were your thoughts of the boardrooms in general? Because that was your first time, I think, presenting in one, in a boardroom.
Yeah, it was. I just liked
Tell me about
how
that.
honest people were. We had people raise their hands, we had questions. I also loved hearing the feedback, good and bad. We need all of those honesty in order to improve. But, that good feedback does really feel good that, what we're doing internally is coming out to our MSPs and they are utilizing it is like such a pat on the back. So I loved that. But I also learned so much. I mean, the one we went to was just for security, which, I have a high level overview. So I learned a lot there when you guys did a deeper dive into, CIS framework and NIST. I loved that.
One of the things that stood out to me, Dom, and I'd ask you this is, I think we're seeing this mix of a rapidly increasing maturity partner. I think just in general, the people that sat in that room in Secure that we talked to this time versus a year ago at the same time, they've grown hockey stick. I'll stop using asymptote because everybody doesn't understand it, but the hockey stick growth. What have you seen, Dom? And what are your thoughts on kind of that growth of the partner and what that does to these boardrooms?
Man, I go back to, we went to Exchange Security 20, as I'd been at 22, right, in Virginia.
Yep.
And you're right, the difference in the 12 months made, and they were pretty close. So it was approximately 12 months between, going to Reston and hearing some of the challenges that they were facing. There were definitely mature partners there, but some of them were still in this very elementary phase of understanding what a framework is and how they need to apply it, or they're still asking questions like, what tool should I buy instead of how should I solve for this control? And we were in Virginia, so there's a lot of CMMC going on. But going into 2023, for me, it was a challenge. Like, I got asked really challenging questions that I had to rack my brain about or take back and find that person later to get them an answer. And I love that. Like, I really like getting challenged that way because it means I'm probably going to learn something out of this interaction or this presentation or what have you. So I would say the growth was massive. We were talking more about, you were talking about, Control 8 with the state of Colorado thing. The questions are more about like, well, how can I apply Control 8 if this is my environment, or I need to think about this sort of retention issue? And it's so much more operational and mature in that way, where I'm trying to solve the problem instead of pick the right shiny tool to allegedly, frankly, solve the problem.
What's funny about that is you think of it as like somebody going, I want to pilot. I'm going to be an airplane pilot. And the questions they would ask would be things like, oh, cool, how fast can it go? And what are the, but then you have somebody going, hey, I'm just curious, how much right rudder pressure do I have to overcome the yaw challenges when doing this particular maneuver? Like, that's a fairly different question that might illustrate someone's journey, if you will, through that, that knowledge of being a pilot. And so I think the corollary there is we're seeing people start asking questions about rudders and questions about load balance and questions about things that are showing how much more intelligent they're becoming about these topics as a general fleet of humans and MSPs out there is what's so interesting to me.
And they're Savannah, more concerned, right? I think they were more concerned about the modern threat landscape that you and I have been talking about for 2 years now, right? That growth and the sophistication of our adversaries and the challenge that we all need to rise to meet. I think there's a much better understanding of that, and not a fear, but a respect and a need to map how to meet that challenge, right? And that's a much better approach than we've seen in the past, where we've seen fear or we've seen denial even, a lot of
Yep.
that has gone away.
Yeah. It's funny. I did a talk called How I Would Hack You with Jason Slagle and with Tom Lawrence. And we've actually done it 2 years now. And this was the second year we did it. And we presented it. And we were actually noting that when we asked people how many people had conditional access in, how many people were doing more advanced CA type policies, the room went from what you and I saw, Dom, even in our throwdown, to that following into the year when we did the security boot camp. Right, the numbers are growing. People are doing it, and I think to your point, like talk about resolute. They've gone from fear and cowering and I can't or even denial. They've worked through all these stages of grief to the point where they're now just rolling up their sleeves and moving through it, right? Like I think that's what we're seeing. Savanna, do you have any other, kind of thoughts about this? Was your first channel event? Anything that surprised you, or maybe that you thought you would have seen there? Like, tell me a little bit more about your experience going to a channel event like that.
Well, and as you guys kind of just said, these partners at that event particularly were so knowledgeable about their security stack, and that really blew me away. Definitely not being the technical person there, I was like, oh yeah, let me go get Dom over here for you. And you guys were telling me that it was a smaller event, and I was like, I think this is a fine event size. But I really enjoyed it, just getting to conversate with people and where they're all at in their different spaces, MSSPs, MSPs. Well, a lot of the boardrooms we were in were a really good, I feel like, group of different mixtures. It wasn't, just a bunch of MSPs. We met a lot of different types of partners, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, that stood out to me too. And, you were one of the ones that called that out. And we started noticing like some of them were straight up, ISVs or value added people that are creating a product they're wanting to sell and almost would have been a vendor in the past. And you kind of have this weird relationship playing out. But since we've got the minutes and we have the time, I'm going to put you on the spot. So what does MSP stand for?
Managed service provider.
Awesome. All right. Now this one may or may not be a trick question. What does MSSP stand for?
I know it's more security focused, but don't ask me the actual acronym.
No, I was actually being a little tongue in cheek in the sense that MSSP is managed security service provider, but it's also a bit of a myth. And I I tease. But, one of the things that we saw truly is more and more and more of this convergence of the need is there, as Dom said, right? We need to be able to solve this security challenge. The services might not be there. The capabilities may not be there. The muscles, the way they flex may not be there. And they're all starting to kind of dig into that. And that's why you're seeing these MSSPs that are starting to come into the ecosystem and either partner and deliver services together with these MSPs, or they themselves start doing managed services in that definition as a separate line item or even possibly part of it. At the same time that MSPs are starting to realize, wait a minute, I can't just turn the wrench and not be responsible for some of the security and not be responsible to be that last mile, right? When you're dealing with the early days of speeds and feeds, you have the term of last mile, right? Who's bringing that last piece out to the customer, to that piece, and that's the MSP. And so they're in a position where they have to deliver that. And so you're seeing this odd mix of people. I was struck by that too, Savanna, of there's just a lot of different types of partners there. And that was one of the first times that really stood out to me, other than Write a Boom specifically. So, Dom, any other kind of thoughts from you? Or go ahead, Savanna.
I was just going to say the amount of partners that were using NIST. I think, primarily I know a lot about CIS framework, not a lot, but that's when I hear the most about. So that was also very interesting to me because I do work, with some of the things I send out are around security. So I was like, oh, so it's not, just CIS framework. We also have the NIST, and just where they were going in their business. They were a lot further ahead than I expected, which helps me gauge kind of where our partners are at. And, our SSCs have those conversations with our partners right away, but it's still good to know internally.
That's a ding. What's an SSC?
Security Solutions Consultant.
There it is.
Awesome. Very good. There we go. I just got to make sure we keep it honest on the acronym counters. So we're in good shape. So one of the things that I think comes out of that conversation from a, solution provider perspective and how they're changing, do you feel like you got to get enough conversations in that short period of time to come back with some ideas and thoughts on that at all? I mean, do you feel like you maximized your time at the event with these partners?
I think I definitely need more time. There's always more time that you need, but it helped me because I'm currently working on a workflow for our reduced risk command the message pillar. So kind of seeing what workflow they go through helps me decipher, which next steps that we want in our process.
Well, you
That's
hit a
awesome.
really
So,
important
first,
point
people that-
there, because
go ahead, Tom.
a lot of times, partners are going to hear marketing. And I think about the emails that we tend to pepper people with, because that's marketing. But I think a really important point, and we can go back to Caroline Goals on stage at Beyond and talking through how marketing is truly trying to build a partner enablement engine, right? So if you all are hearing us talk about command of the message and these 3 pillars, they're built just as much for you as they are for us, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine that your customers, if you're an MSP, probably want to manage their risk. They probably want to manage their costs, and they probably want to grow, right? So it's the same thing. So I think an important thing to touch on is our marketing engine is being built just as much to enable you as it is us, because your success is how we succeed. So that's really the angle that Sav and others come to this with, is how can I make this piece of the marketing machine enable the partner journey?
And also help them
because I'm a
sell to their customers. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, no, because I'm a horrible person. I don't like prep our guests with questions. We kind of just make them up as we go because it's just much more fun that way. But what it does highlight is when she says command the message and talks about the 3 pillars, Dom, what you just said is exactly that. We don't just outwardly put out that we want to help you reduce risk, reduce and control costs, and be more profitable and grow, right? We actually live that in the way we try to codify it inside our own world, even all the way down to what Sav said as she started out with this of, well, we're working on a workflow right now for this portion of how do we help reduce risk. That forces you to be inward. That forces you to be external. It forces you to ask that question and try to actually answer, are we? And so just like what you were saying, Dom, of that being our operating system, we want to talk about that to empower and grow and make your capabilities through our actions that we change in our platform, but also even in the things that we ask and teach and educate around CIS. And Sav, to your point of saying some of them were on NIST, right? And educating and empowering and understanding where the partner wants to go. But that then drives to what Dom said of, if we do that for you as an MSP, there is a one-to-one corollary that you must be doing that for your client, right? As if you're an MSP delivering service, the way you make profit is by reducing their risk, right? Controlling their costs and moving their needle so they make money and pay for their growth and their own aspirations in life. This isn't rocket science. This is really that situation. What I love, though, is just even hearing you answer that question says, we're talking about this internally. It's everywhere. That's the same stuff we say. It better be talking about one of these 3 pillars. So do you want to lean into like your journey a little bit of command the message, since you brought it up, just because it does tie directly into being able to understand those?
It's more of a Q4 thing. I will say it's heavily integrated with Academy, which really shined, I think, also at Xchange, was walking partners through, like, have you been in it? Do you know? I think it's something that really deserves a lot more love at Pax8 from our partners. It is extremely beneficial. So I have been putting a lot of those sessions that are created within Academy within this workflow to send to partners so that they can send them, use them for their customer selling as well, of where their path is and grow. And they can decide, okay, here is where I'm at in my security. I always am going to get fumbled with my words, but this is where I'm starting in my security journey, and this is where I'm at. And then depending where they're at, it tells them which courses to take and what actions to take.
I love it, because security is a journey. And I think that's the brilliant way to say it, is that we're all on a security journey. And if you can find where someone is and find and make correlated pieces to help educate them to the next step in the journey, you, number one, won't waste their time with things that aren't in their forward path. They're things they've already done and know, but you'll also empower them with that next stepping stone for the journey and that next piece. And so I love hearing that. That's fantastic. And I know you'll share the rest when it's publicly allowed. I tried to trick you into doing it, but it's okay. It's okay. I appreciate you. You've been trained well by you.
Talked about espionage, Matt. It's not allowed.
But the security
Fair,
part within
fair.
Academy, I mean, has all that information in it already. So it's already at their fingertips to access as a Pax8 partner.
Yeah. 100%. So one other thing that we know, you've been to your event, you presented in boardrooms, you interacted with partners and started to grow more of that understanding where they're at. But there's another Xchange event coming up, and I think that's coming up in Nashville. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Tell me what you're most excited about there.
Well, I just found out today that there's a costume day, so now I'm very excited about that.
What is this costume day? I haven't heard this.
Yeah.
What did Dom just tell me? There's a wizard day, an enchanted
He might be
wizard.
trolling you.
No, he sent me the actual.
You may show up
picture.
with a wand and be the only person with a wand.
It is Nashville, so I think I wouldn't look that weird. I might
blend right in.
So Tom, what is this thing? What is this thing? You said there's a dress up day potentially. I got to hear
from our good friends at the Tech Degenerates, and if you've been to Xchange, you know who I'm talking about, right? And they've done everyone a great service, and they've expanded their costume concept to everyone. All right. So if you're going to Xchange, look up the Tech Degenerates on LinkedIn, but I'll turn my head over here and read this to you. It says, we frequently get asked how to join in and participate in the Tech Degenerates costume antics. Here's your chance. We're happy to extend an invitation to join us at Xchange Nashville in a couple of weeks as we dress as wizards, warlocks, and mages for our first group costume night. Any and all varieties of each are welcome, from Merlin to Harry Potter, and we welcome MSPs, vendors, and the channel company staff alike to join in on the fun. So now you have, and I've always been jealous that I didn't get advance notice of the costume options at Xchange, because I would love to participate. So Sav, this is your opportunity to participate in costume night.
I have a Harry Potter wand, guys. I'm ready for it. Also, a great thing.
I need to order some beard dye.
Merlin's beard.
I'm gonna get a gray beard. Yeah, I'll get Merlin's gray beard there. Sorry, go ahead, Sav.
Oh, you're fine. Another really thing I'm excited about is for anybody going that wasn't able to attend Beyond, we're actually touching on 3 sessions that we hosted at Beyond at Xchange. So that's really exciting. We're going to have coaches from our Academy team there. And then we also have Rob Ray and Scott Chasen being the keynotes. And they're going to be talking about the future of the marketplace, which was one of my favorite sessions at Beyond. So I'm stoked to hear that again, and for everyone who wasn't able to attend Beyond to hear it.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you right now, if you missed Beyond, or you were at Beyond and you missed, I don't know how you would have, but if you missed Scott Chasen's keynote in any way, shape, or form, and you're going to Xchange, you need to catch that keynote. And if I'm wrong, you can pepper me on LinkedIn and complain about it. I'm telling you, you want to hear what Scott has to say.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and it's even developed even more as a vision and as actuality since Beyond. I did want to touch on something you said, Savanna, about this Xchange being more of the coaches and people from Academy, and to your point, highlighting those people, getting them on stage. You're following a course that started a few years ago. Rite of Boom is one of the first ones that really changed and said, we want educators. We only want to educate. Do not sell. You must be up here to teach. That was the only thing. But it started to permeate. And at Beyond, I think Pax8 crushed it in that regard, in the sense that we actually asked for RFPs, requests for papers and proposals. Those were all submitted by a lot of the Academy team members. And they said, here's what my people want to learn. Here's what I'm hearing people ask. Here's what needs to be taught, which is a shift, because in some ways it's a shift from marketing, creating that from a pulse. And what I love is kind of this marriage of what you're doing here to now there's an educator in the field that already knows something and knows what people want to hear. And we put all of them on stage, right? All of the sessions, for the most part, were all generated based on these people's ideas. And then they went and taught them and presented them. Some of them never been on stage before. And so it was bloody brilliant for that reason. And I do love that you're actually now tying in from Xchange, bringing those same people to go present that same awesome stuff to people in that way. And then to your point, Dom, Scott Chasen's vision of where we're moving from a marketplace perspective and the data that can be brought in and how intelligent we can be in what we do and how we buy things is definitely a showstopper. And I would certainly make sure to attend that if you're going to be there. Are you going to this one, Sav?
Yes, I'm going. Are you?
I am not. I am actually only
Nor
going to
am
fly
I.
in for the wizard thing. I wasn't planning on coming, but now you've ruined that for me. So I'm going to have to get my gray robes and get on an airplane looking like a wizard. That'll be fun. No,
I'm excited.
I am going to be in Nashville that Sunday. What's that?
Oh, I've never been to Nashville, so I'm
Ah,
excited.
I'm flying in to speak at another engagement that Sunday, and then I'm going to be taking a vacation. So I will leave this one to you. But this is supposedly the I almost used a fake word there. It's interesting. It's supposedly the much larger of these two. Dom, have you been to the actual
So
flag
we
exchange before?
you were there. So when I think it was last year at the Gaylord, same spot as Beyond. You and I had like 32 boardrooms. It was ridiculous, and you and I were just
Oh,
sprinting
that's right.
across this
That's right.
massive venue. It's that exchange. It's
Which doesn't
big.
look pretty.
There's a lot of great humans there. So that's what I meant when I said exchange security is smaller. It's a much more tight knit group of people that are at exchange security compared to the exchange. I think there's a different name for it, but I call it the exchange, the big one. More vendors, bigger solutions pavilion, and more people to interact with. You will find yourself in constant enlightening conversation at that one for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So back on kind of the conversation of what do you hope to gain out of this next exchange event? What are you working on? Is it just continuous refinement on kind of what you gained out of the first one, or do you have a new strategy? Tell me about that.
New strategy would, now that I'm thinking about it, would be smart. But yes, definitely still getting the same value from what we got at the last one, since I do feel like that one was smaller. So I'm excited to go to a bigger one and kind of see other vendors that are there. And then also being able to attend this with other coworkers that I haven't really gotten to before. So Caroline Goals is going to be there, Nicole Faletra, Rob Gray,
Awesome.
Scott Chasen. So they're also a great group of people to, spend time with and pick their brains, and have that one-on-one time is very beneficial as well. And be able to walk around, see some familiar faces and continue those conversations. It was really nice getting to talk to some people that were Pax8 partners and, kind of help them out here and there with some things. Maybe they had some questions, check in with them, see how they're doing.
And also, they become great guides, right? Usually our partners that are our partners are extremely raving fans for the most part, right? It's a higher proportion than I would have imagined. And it's really nice to have them introduce you to other people and help you
Yeah.
meet other partners that can talk about those things with you too. And I will say having that crew at Exchange next time that you just mentioned will be pretty awesome in general. Especially Rob does such a great job of really being the ear for so many MSPs, and at those conferences when we talk about community, which is really what this show is about today, is really just being there to listen to each other. You've said it many times. Maybe I can help them with one little thing, or maybe I can solve this one piece for it. And imagine what's happening at these conferences is you're now putting that many collisions in a very small place, and then on purpose trying to listen to those collisions and trying to listen to what's needed and what's solved. And so I think with Rob being involved and you guys actually purposefully stepping through this, Caroline Goals, it's just rock star after rock star. So it's going to be fantastic. All right. Well, we're probably going to go ahead and close this out. Dom, do you have any closing thoughts for us before we wrap it up? And then we'll do the same for you, Sav, and then we'll close out.
Yep. I think part of the reason for us doing this show was to really illustrate the value of getting in the community, going to the events, and doing the networking piece of these events, right? And it's not just Exchange. Every boot camp we've ever hosted, I feel like I got a lot more done afterwards, and presenting the content is great, and I hope you learn a lot from that. But make sure you take the time to make human connections, learn new things from each other, make new contacts, and build that network, because that's really, at the end of the day, regardless of the event, where the value's at.
Yep. Savanna, what are your thoughts? Close it
Yep.
out for us, and then I'll wrap up with mine.
Yeah, well, and also I don't think I touched on this as much, but something else I love, even when I went to Beyond and this exchange, is the knowledge that I can get from joining these sessions, even the ones that I'm not speaking in, or there's not anyone from Pax8 speaking. I learned so much, and that value right there, even outside of networking, is invaluable. So I love that aspect of it, just from a career point of view, and it helps me do my job. And just love meeting people. I really appreciate you guys letting me come on here and also go to shows with you guys. I thoroughly enjoy it and can't wait for the next one.
That's actually a fantastic call out. And I think you see more and more of a shift of people that really want to learn. There's plenty of opportunities for learning there. And it is a great call out to go listen to other presentations, hear what they have to say, understand what people are thinking through, especially at these type of events. You'll invariably wind up with people that literally have something to say. And then that helps drive that education. And it's not a sales pitch, it's an educational piece of that. And so that's a fantastic call out from that perspective. I'll go a little bit more nerdy as well in the same vein of one of the things that I love about these events, period, is once you establish that everybody is starting to talk about the finer points of cybersecurity and we are really getting into this, I'm constantly challenged with thought-provoking things that I have to actually justify in my own mind, and it changes my own view of cybersecurity. And so what I love about these conferences is that they put like-minded people going through these challenges, to Dom's point earlier, that they're asking much more understanding questions, right? It means that they're going to come up with challenges that I might not have thought about, right? Or that maybe I have to put some real thought into how I would apply a CIS safeguard or a NIST practice, right? Of how that would even tie into this. And so for me, it's just getting forced to get to nerd out with the DOMs of the world and talk about the finer points of cybersecurity in these type of events. And to echo what Dom said, if you're a partner going to these shows, don't miss out on asking those questions, on sitting around and immersing yourself, on doing the uncomfortable thing and introduce yourself to somebody else that you don't know. And if you're a vendor going to these shows, I want to give Savanna's advice 100%, which is if you are not going and attending these sessions and actually learning, I've seen them, we've all seen them. They stand out in the halls or they disappear and only show up for show time and for the floor time. You are not going to walk away with the same knowledge set of what your partners need, what people are talking about, what are the buzzwords, what's really happening in our world. And so if you're not immersing yourself in that, you're probably not getting the money that you're spending out of that show. And I would encourage you to definitely do what she said and listen and go and sit in these events and learn from them. So that's pretty much all I got. Dom,
sure
you
you're
want to let
going to
us know what we're
say,
working
make
on?
sure you lock your computer was going to be like your first.
Oh,
just
man, I did have a failed opportunity there, Dom. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
But
But now they're not going to lock it and you're going to get a great LinkedIn. So it's all good.
Oh,
At Black Hat, you got none? Is that what you're saying?
None.
All right.
Zero. I walked around everywhere.
I mean, it's Black Hat.
I was like, it is Black Hat.
If you screw up at Black Hat, like that's bad.
Yeah. True story.
Well, thanks so much for coming, Sav. It's been great to have you on the show. And thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. It's been another great show. I'm not going to reveal names just yet for next week, but we talked a lot about the importance of networking and community. And next week's guest is really going to drive that home because he is an absolute expert at doing just that. So you won't want to miss next week's episode. As always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that fun stuff. Don't forget to catch all the other Pax8 live shows, and we're getting to too many for me to just name them all. So just subscribe to Pax8 Cloud on YouTube. Make sure you catch them all. We'll see you next week.